for all things land development, planning and property. This is Property on Fire with Ian Walmsley. To find out how Ian can help you, visit propertyonfire.co.uk.
Hello and welcome to this week's end of the year episode of Property on Fire. So what do we have coming up in today's episode? Well, it's a little bit different this week as we're looking back on 2020 with a couple of guests, talking about how COVID did and perhaps didn't affect their businesses. So without further ado, let's get started. But before we do, please do like, review and subscribe to this podcast and come with me on this property journey. Now, I hope you've all had a great Christmas and I'm sure you're all on a nice list, so Father Christmas probably bought you everything that you desired. I'm recording this sipping an eggnog, and why not? But the diet I think is going to have to restart on the 1st of January, and I think I'll just ignore any pounds that have been put on over the last week or so. But hey, one needs to relax every so often. So how was 2020 for you? Why not let me know? You can tweet me at Property on Fire, or you can find me on Facebook and other social media. I would really love to hear from you. Now, I'm not going to pretend it's been easy for all my companies. Planning Geek, well, that's grown to have 10 times of visitors per day from the spring to December, so I can't complain there. It's certainly nice to see the increase in numbers. And of course, I've launched my first podcast, Property on Fire. But then you already know of that because you're here listening. And thank you to each and every one of you for listening and enjoying, commenting and messaging me. I really enjoy all the interaction that I've been able to have over the first couple of months. I know that all my mentees are all looking forward to 2021, and I look forward to helping them realise their dreams over the months ahead. I think that great opportunities for them will exist going throughout 2021, and it's an exciting time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them progress over the next 12 months or so. Now, I've always said I'm not going to hide from the good, the bad, and indeed the downright ugly, to be honest. And with Leading Homes, well, it's not been quite as good as I'd have liked. Certainly this time last year, none of us could have foreseen what was about to happen, and our Totnes site has been affected quite badly by COVID-19. Although the site never really shut, it got big delays through to the supply chain being badly affected by COVID, and as a result that affected sales. We've had to refinance on the deal, which we completed just before Christmas, so that was one good thing, that we were able to refinance onto a CBILS product. But when you're refinancing a couple of million, 2.5 million, it's never quite as easy as one would hope. The planning on the site, well, one of our planning applications took over a year to come through, which is, quite a long time. And I'm hoping that the next one will be an awful lot quicker. Now, on our 14 bungalow site in North Devon, you may recall that we lost our funder who was lending money at 15% per annum with COVID. And so obviously we had to find alternative funding. But we're not quite there. We were hoping we might get it across the line just before Christmas. But as you'll hear in a minute in my rant, that wasn't to be. So, we're still looking to still get this over the line. So if you're out there and can help from 50k upwards, then please do get in touch. But the one thing is for sure, we will get this over the line. We've been working hard on this with my business partner, Jonathan Stobbs, for over a year, and neither he nor I are about to give up now. Now, despite these setbacks for Leading Homes, I really am looking forward to 2021. I hope you are as well. Now, I'm very pleased to welcome my first guest on this week's show, Saif Derzi. I just wonder if initially you could just tell us a little bit about the three companies you actually run, if that's possible.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on, Ian. Appreciated it. And obviously, from our point of view, when we set out to do what we're doing in property, we always had a long-term vision in mind, and one of our sort of key values is sustainability. So with sustainability, that means what we're doing is obviously needing to be able to be here in 5, 10, 15, 20, and hopefully even generations to come, years' time. So from our perspective, we wanted to set out and do it in the right way. And our businesses were born out of necessity more than anything else. So our main focus was always to build an investment portfolio. So that was sort of the first and foremost thing that we always wanted to do. And that, again, was very slow. It takes time, but there's a lot of different elements that you need to have in order to make that sustainable. And the two key things for me was, one, the deals. So the deal pipeline and the deal flow was one. And then two was A, asset management, but B, property management as well. And that's why we have one of the businesses is Property Buyers Today. And that's the engine, if you like, to be able to bring the deals in to the pipeline to allow us to do what we do. The property management business, Letco Property Management, manages everything at the back end as well, because again, you can work with other agents, but you have to manage those other agents. So I just thought, well, why don't we bring it in house and sort of do a better job almost of what they're doing, and almost, if we can do that, try and obviously deliver that for other landlords as well, but in a more sustainable fashion. So again, in that business, we take on a certain amount of properties, and we don't take on more than that until we have enough capacity to scale further and further. So we have different sort of stages that we want to scale. And then our main business is sort of SDGB Properties, which is the main investment vehicle. And again, that's just sort of very purely and simply single family homes or social housing supported living properties that we basically buy and hold for the long term.
So I take it that name's based on your initials.
My wife's.
Quite often these are days where you see these initials banded around like B&Q and all that, and we never quite know or understand where the initials come from. So it's always good to know. So as we are now, we've just got over Christmas, so I hope you had a good Christmas, my friend. But during 2020, there's obviously been, it goes without saying, a lot of challenges that we've all faced within property. So perhaps you could just let me know exactly how you've actually faced up to 2020, and have you actually had any sort of restrictions that you've had to overcome and everything else during the year?
Yeah, well, for sure. And I think anyone that says they haven't had any restrictions this year is probably going to be lying about that, because it's definitely been one of the most challenging years for a lot of property investors, a lot of business owners as well as people that have been employed as well. It's been very, very challenging. And I think the thing about this year has been how to be able to manage a crisis. So crisis management is being very, very key. Being flexible, being agile has been very, very key. And we've had all these different words banded about, which I'm not going to repeat. But I think, generally speaking, it's been a year of being able to plan ahead and think ahead before things happen quite a lot. So for us, being able, the team have been actually quite good in terms of, as soon as sort of March happened and the first lockdown came about, the first thing we did was we got together, we formed a bit of a plan. Okay, well, where are the risks and what we're going to do? It was very, very difficult. If you remember back in March 2020, and I'm sure you can remember as well, it was very, very difficult because no one knew what was going on.
Well, indeed, no.
There's a lot of panic. There was a lot of fear as well. And even the biggest property investors in the industry didn't really know what was going on. And if I'm being totally honest with you, if it wasn't for the government intervention, I do think we were going to have a totally different 2020 than we actually did have. So I think that was key. And until that happened, people were still very much living in fear. So for us, we had to bring everyone together. We had to understand where the risks were. So obviously material management was probably one of the most important things. So for us, material and people, we had new build sites on the go. We had commercial conversions on the go. We had general refurbs on the go. And then we had property purchasing and property sales as well at the same time. And every single part had its own challenges. But yeah, we managed to basically put a bit of a plan together, think ahead, try and make sure we had enough material, try to get storage for that material as well. So that was quite key and quite important. We need to understand, so to be honest with you, in terms of the properties that we were purchasing, I was still very much wanting to go ahead with those properties that we're purchasing. We use a pretty famous bridging lender to do a lot of our bridging, to be honest with you, but they bridge us on the way in. And they, if you remember, sort of pulled out the market completely. Well, that was officially for us because we had a different type of relationship. We have a more relationship with them, basically more of a facility type relationship as opposed to just a bridging one. So they sort of underwrite us for a facility. And they basically just said, look, we're going to have to restrict your LTVs. So we were in at 90% LTVs at the start, and then they sort of restricted at 65. So suddenly we had to come up with a lot more money to complete on these deals. And we ended up completing on a lot of them, to be honest with you. We didn't pull out of them. That's one thing that we always promise is whatever happens, we will complete, albeit sort of it was slightly lower than where the vendor wanted to be. But I don't think they could have sold it to anyone else at that time at anything better than we bought it for. So we gave them a good option there. So that's kind of how 2020 has shaped out. But yeah, it has come with its challenges for sure.
Whereabouts in the UK do you operate, Saif?
So I'm based out of Lincoln. Our team is very remote, even though most of our team are actually based out of Lincoln. We all work remotely, but our main sort of investment areas, we started off with Lincolnshire, then we sort of expanded because what happened was we became motivated buyers because we weren't finding enough deals within a small geographical area. So we started expanding into Yorkshire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire. Now we're even going into the Northwest as well. So we're buying stuff in the Northwest. And this year we actually flipped a property completely remotely in Croydon in London,
Right.
which was interesting. So I think we've developed a system, property management system, asset management system, and also being able to purchase and refurb remotely. And I think that's been the biggest challenge for us doing it this year, is being able to do everything remotely.
And how long have you actually been running Property Buyers Today? Is it a fairly new company, or have you been established a while? Or?
Yeah, so I think with that one, so we were doing a lot of that sort of the last 2 years. So a lot of it was people coming to us, or we're having other cash buying companies come to us wanting to trade, other traders wanting to come to trade. And I think the way we built our reputation and relationships was all based on doing what we say we're going to do and being able to complete within that 2 weeks. So when I say to someone, we're going to complete in 2 weeks, we are going to complete in 2 weeks, and I'll do anything that I can to make sure we do that. And that's how we built a lot of our reputation. And then we quickly realised that, well, why don't we put a brand behind this? Why don't we put a face behind this? And then why don't we suddenly sort of create almost like a digital platform website and then try and market it and start doing a lot of it ourselves. And sort of within the last year, so 2020 is when we actually launched Property Buyers Today officially as a brand and as a company. But as I said, we've been doing it for the last 2 years unofficially.
Cool. Excellent. Lovely. I just wondered, is there any sort of one piece of advice that you could actually offer those people that are actually listening today?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's been on my mind for a bit is I've been listening to a lot of people talk about sort of the BRRRR strategy, or the buy, refurbish, refinance, rent strategy. And a lot of people talk about that. And one thing that I've been thinking about is, well, it's not always the case. I mean, I've bought a lot of properties and done that same strategy, but I've not actually had to refurb every single one of them. And when I delved into it further, I quickly realised actually it's it should be buy, solve, refinance, and rent, or whatever you want to call it, really. Buy, solve, rent, refinance. Because a lot of it is, if you can buy something with a problem, it doesn't, some of our properties that we bought, I'll show you a picture of them, and you look at them and think, well, you don't need a refurb on this. There's no refurb needed. So how have you been able to buy it and refinance it out higher than what you paid for it, and all within 6 months? And a lot of that is being able to solve a problem. So the key to this, and I think in general to business and property, is being able to solve problems. So find something where you can solve a problem. Don't just go out looking for a property that you need to refurb, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to buy it at the right price.
Indeed, I think that's a very valuable advice there. It's actually finding the problem that exists, and perhaps that's why it's on the market and unsold, and solving that problem and passing it on to somebody else who probably isn't aware of how to solve that problem, and just doesn't know what to actually do. So yeah, great advice there, Saif. And really appreciate your time today for joining us. And as we move into 2021, I wish you and your company, and indeed your family, all the very best for 2021 and the year ahead of us.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, and likewise, thanks a lot. And hopefully everyone had a good Christmas and has a good New Year as well.
Thanks, Saif. Very much appreciated for taking the time this week to speak to us.
This is Property on Fire with Ian Walmsley. And now, Ian's Rant.
Now, a brief rant this week, and it's quite simple. Why is the country shutting down for 2 weeks? Or perhaps why does it always shut down every year for 2 weeks? I have no idea. It's mighty frustrating that when one is actually trying to get deals across the line, to get surveys done and requiring the input from other professionals, it seems that everyone seems to have shut down a few days before Christmas, not even on Christmas Eve, a few days before Christmas, and of course they don't actually return until at least the 4th of January. But then of course we have this every year. But why? I don't really understand it, if I'm honest. Now maybe I'm talking a load of rubbish here. Perhaps you don't agree with me. Well, let me know. Tell me. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me the fact that the country should be shutting down for 2 weeks. I don't understand it. But hey, I'm just one voice here. So if you don't agree with me, why not shout about it and tell me? Tell me I'm talking a load of rubbish. I would love to hear from you. You can tweet me at Property on Fire, or you can reach out to me on Facebook, on Twitter, and I really do look forward to hearing a different point of view on whether or not we should be shutting down for 2 weeks. Right, now I've got that off my chest, I can welcome our second guest this week, who is Julie Hogbin. Did you have a good Christmas, first of all, Julie?
Yes, I did. Quiet, as 2020 Christmases have been, I think, for a lot of people. But yeah, I actually didn't do any work. I did rest, I did relax, and did some creative thinking, I think is what I did Christmas Day.
Excellent, lovely. Well, glad to hear you had a good Christmas anyway, a nice relaxing day. So tell me, 2020 is obviously, it goes without saying, has been a little bit different, shall we say, from previous years. I think that's a slight understatement. But how has it affected your business, and perhaps what is your business? I mean, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure on exactly what you do. So perhaps you could let those listening know what you actually do in property, and also let them know as to how 2020 has been for you.
What do I do in property?
No good asking me. I don't know.
No, it's a reflective question. I sometimes wonder, Ian, I think it's probably why I asked myself the question. I'm an HMO person through and through. I absolutely love it. I actually think it is a safer strategy than some of the others, because if you've got one empty room or one tenant not paying, the others still do, generally speaking. So I personally think it's safer. I absolutely love it. And I think part of that is because I don't mind people. I'm actually good with people. I'm really good at building relationships with people. I'm not their friends as such. They are my tenants. But I'm an ex-management leadership consultant. So dealing with people and dealing with their behaviours, it comes really, really easily to me. So I think that's one of the reasons I love HMOs, and I think they're safer, as I already said. So I've got my own, I own them. I also do, so that's equity growth for me, because where I live, which is sort of southeast London, North Kent, you don't get many for your pound.
Sure.
And I also do rent to rent for cash flow, basically. I don't want to invest in other parts of the country because this is the part of the country I know. I don't want to do all the travelling. I've got to the point where actually, do you know what? I think I'd rather have an easier life than trekking up and down motorways to properties.
I don't blame you.
Thank you. So I manage a couple just by default, don't advertise it. I manage a couple of properties, single let, and up until probably 2 weeks ago, actually, I was managing a commercial unit over in Orpington, but that's just been sold. So the new owners have taken that on board and manage it themselves. So pretty diverse. I've done a couple of refurbs and flipped, didn't keep them. You know, you make the decisions when you make the decisions to do what you do. I've done a lease option, just one, but that was successful and profitable for me, and could have been even more had I not been nice to the owners when they eventually got themselves sorted out. But still very profitable to me. So I'm open to doing anything in reality, as long as I can, cost analyse, cost benefit, the time, the effort, the money, the everything that you do with property. It's got to be right.
How has 2020 been in the world of HMOs and rent to rent then?
Well, it's been really interesting. So the properties that I've got in sort of Bexley Heath area, which is where I'm based, have been absolutely fine. Tenants have been stable, and I have had a couple of tenants turn over, which was quite surprising. But people made a lot of decisions in 2020 about themselves, their lives, and the rooms have been up for tenanting, and I've had absolutely no issue filling them, and all been done socially distanced and all been done in agreement with the people that are in the house and all of that. I wouldn't have gone against anything that they wanted me to do or not to do, and most of the tenants have been working. So one of my tenants is they're very various different disciplines, from security to prison warden to working from home to working in the hospitality industry, to being in the, dependent on the house, being in the construction trade. So
Right.
within sort of Bexley Heath area, it's been fine, absolutely fine. But I do have a rent to rent with my business partner in New Cross, so SE, I think it's SE 14, and that, because of the area it is in, has operated at 50% void most of the way through lockdown, which basically means we have operated at a slight loss most of the way through the year. Not all of the way, so we've been able to manage it, but most of the way through the year we've had at least 2 rooms empty, and currently now got 4, and we cannot fill them for love nor money. For point out into the universe, we can't fill them because the area that it is in has completely shut down.
Right. Yeah.
The pubs are shut. The restaurants is a really buzzy area. The pubs are shut. The restaurants are shut. People just don't want to live there. I think they've moved out. And whereas before we would have had people leaping at the rooms, we just haven't this year.
When the commercial side of it stops, then it has a direct effect on any of those businesses which either support those commercial businesses or rely upon them.
Yeah, and the other thing I've noticed as well, that particular HMO is an 8-bed. Now it's a big house. It's got big communal areas. It's got a big kitchen. It's got 3 shower rooms in it. They're not en suite. It's got 3 shower rooms in it and a separate WC. So it's well serviced, and people don't want to live with 7 other people.
No.
So I'm actually beginning to wonder if this sort of rule of 6 and the bubbles that we had or we have, I know they're less than that now and whatever, but I think that rule of 6 has got into people's heads.
Sure.
It's just a thought process I've had, but because it's 8 people there have been a few viewings, or I've had conversations. I've done virtual viewings, and there's a video up for the house and all that sort of stuff. Had conversations with people, and the minute they find it's a house of 8, they're not interested. So
I can understand that logic there, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been, that particular one has been an issue almost from the beginning of so from March, April. I think we had 1 room that we were trying to tenant, and then someone else left, so we had 2, and then just in the last couple of months we're now to 4. So we're 50% void or 50% full, whichever way you want to look at it. We're managing it, but we're managing it because of the rest of the portfolio, to be honest.
No, that's good. I mean, yes, at least you have the other parts of your portfolio that can support it, sort of going forward. And obviously, if you're, it's a good saying, but if your eggs all in one basket, that's where you start to struggle.
Yeah. I tell you the other thing that has really affected. I could talk for hours on mental health issues and coming out of this, but the other thing that I've done with, I've got a house that's basically got construction workers in it. And they're great, absolutely fine. I've never had any issue with any of them paying any rent, or maybe one is a bit of an issue, but all of the others pay all on time, no problem. And of course, the construction industry went down the pan. And I said to all of them, if you need any of my help to make the claims that you need to make and everything else linked to that, just ask. I don't want to see you struggling and ultimately, of course, I need my rent type thing. And I get on really well with them, so it wasn't an issue. And one guy went from March till August before he actually asked for my help, because he thought, he's dyslexic, doesn't really read or write much at all. He's quite heavily dyslexic. I don't have any issue with that. But when you go to claim from the DWP, if you can't operate online, it's really tough. Mm-hmm. And of course, the job centre pluses were shut down. He didn't have anywhere to physically go to get the claim through. And come the end of August, he rang me up and said, can you help me? And I said, yeah, of course. What do you want? What do you need? He'd had a claim that he thought he'd set up in March, April time, and he'd not had a penny from then till when he phoned me in April. He had been using his funeral money to pay me my rent and to live on, and it was basically running out. I didn't know any of this. He thought I was going to be victim and put him on the street because he didn't have any more money as such. And it's taken me from the beginning of September until September, October. He got his first payment from the benefits office, DWP, on the 14th of November.
Terrible, isn't it?
And you know what? I mean, and I have really kept on it because they were inundated with claims, as we can sort of imagine. But I've kept on it and on it and on it and on it, and I actually got it backdated for him as well.
Good on you.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely delighted. I mean, it's still not concluded. Don't get me wrong. There's still issues, which I am still managing. But it actually took about 2.5 months to get him his first payment through. So I really feel for people who can't operate the system, because for whatever reason, we're not all online savvy. We're not. Doesn't matter what age we are. We can't all deal with authority. Doesn't matter what age we are or who we are. We can't all fill forms in. Doesn't matter who we are, what age we are. There's loads of people out there that need this support. So there's been various things in 2020 that have kept me busy.
I'm sure it sounds it, Julie. Sounds it, yeah. So,
and I'm still smiling.
You're still smiling. That is the main thing, isn't it? Whatever life throws at us, to keep smiling, I think is the main thing that we all have to do from time to time. So I was looking at your name. Well, I was just doing a random search, to be quite honest. And I do this from time to time on Google. Other search engines are, of course, available.
Yes.
But you came up as an author.
Yes.
So what is all this about? I can't say I've seen this book before, but what is it about?
Right. So in 2011, it's a little bit of a story, but it'll be a really quick one. In 2011, when I basically threw everything up in the air, decided I was going to get into property, change my life, change everything that I thought I ever knew. It's been a story and a journey. My very first mentor told me to write a book, and I looked at him and I thought, the man is mad. Why on earth would I write a book? What have I got to write a book on? Forget the fact that at that point I was 50 something and had spent 30 plus years in leadership, management development, in management, working with businesses as a coach, as a mentor, as a consultant. I mean, just umpteen amounts of knowledge in my head. He told me to write it in 2000. I completely ignored him. Got to 2015 and thought, it might be a good idea to write a book. So the first book I wrote was on setting goals, because of course we all need them, regardless. Okay, yeah. And we are constantly, totally, always goal driven. We may not always believe that, but we are. So I wrote a book in 2015 called Setting Goals, The Life-Changing Magic of Setting Goals. Published it on Amazon, and me being me, I don't do any marketing. I just expect people to find it. That's another story. And then it got to like 2020, and I saw an offer from somebody who was doing a free Facebook group to write a book. And I thought, what else have I got to do in this year? I'll join that group. She asked for a commitment. It was completely, totally free. She asked for a commitment to take us into a higher level group to get her support. And I know she was doing it to test a process she wants to use to help people to write a book. So I went into this second group and I made a commitment to publish a second book by a certain date. Now, remember, this is in 2020 in lockdown. 30 plus years ago, I created a stress management program for a UK-wide based retailer.
Right.
And I was watching what was going on around with people's mental health and people's stress levels and all the financial considerations that were happening. And I thought, I've got to write this book. I have to write a book on stress, the reality, because stress is preventable. And I don't think people know that. So I've written this book about stress. So I did that in this year. I have revised my first book, So updated it slightly and republished it onto Amazon. So it's back on there again. Both the stress and the goal setting book, probably by the end of today, will be up there on Kindle as well as paperback. The stress one already is. The goal setting one I'm doing now. I will eventually get them onto Audible, and I've just started writing my third book because I'm like, now I'm on fire. Yeah, on fire and in flow, about motivation.
Cool.
And I can't actually think, to be honest, for 3 subject matters to be more important for all of us, me included, because I'm writing the book thinking, oh, you don't do that, Julie. Get your act into gear, sort yourself out. You know, you're good in one area of your life, and then the other part sort of crumbles or whatever. So I'm now writing a book on motivation, because motivation, goal setting, and managing our stress levels, if we get those 3 things right, in reality, we can achieve anything we set out, we put our mind to. And
Totally.
they're going to be the first 3 books, and then I've got a whole list of other stuff I'm going to write.
Well, well done you.
Yeah,
Well
linked
done
into
you.
management, leadership, all of that sort of stuff, because
Cool.
I've got so much knowledge in my head.
Yeah. Well, I know the feeling, because I mean, my wife Cheryl is always sort of telling me to get on and write a book.
Yeah,
You
do
know,
it.
but I'm not so sure about that. I sort of, you know, it's like anything. I have a degree in procrastination. I mean, I got an honours degree in it. You know, I mean, it took me about 6 or 8 months to actually launch this podcast. So if it can take me long enough to do that when I'm determined to do it, I might have written it by about sort of 30 if I'm lucky. You know?
And I can help you. I tell you, I've been through the ringer and back on writing books.
Well, it's just a case of, as you say, it's a case of getting the knowledge out of one's head onto paper and doing all that. But it's really interesting what you've been saying, Julie, and I really, really appreciate that. Now, just before we close,
Yes.
I have heard a rumor about you climbing Mount Sinai. So you know, I like to do my research into my guests, but please, just, I mean, I'm sure the listeners are sort of fascinated now and just sort of want to know what actually happened on Mount Sinai,
Well,
or the bits that we can actually publish and broadcast, you know, before 9 p.m. You know.
do you know what? I went on a summer holiday to Egypt, and during the day it was beautifully, beautifully hot. And we were snorkeling and doing all sorts of wonderful things as you do on a summer holiday. And we got this, it was one of those holiday trips that, you know, people sell you on the beach type thing about climbing Mount Sinai. So Mount Sinai is where the 10 Commandments come from, etc., etc., the burning bushes at the bottom and all the rest of it. And I thought, I was with my friend, I thought, that'd be interesting. You climb Mount Sinai sort of basically at midnight to get to the top for the sunrise. So it's about a 4-ish hour climb. But of course, I'm on a summer holiday. So what have I got with me? Shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops. You can't climb a mountain in shorts, t-shirts and flip-flops at midnight in the desert. It's freezing. So I wanted to do it. I turned up in my shorts. I bought a pair of those beach shoes, you know, like those neoprene beach shoes. I bought them.
Yes. Yes.
I'll climb up in that. That'll be all right. I was a lot fitter in those days, mind you. And I turned up, got on the coach, and the guide said to me, "Where's your coat?" I said, "I haven't got one." "Where's your trousers?" "I haven't got one." "Haven't got any." So one guide lent me a pair of his like tracksuit bottoms, and another guide lent me a coat. Of course, my friend was fine. Some holiday, she'd taken a woolly with her, as you do, not me.
Yeah.
And we climbed up Mount Sinai. We got to the top, saw the sunrise, and I said to my mate, "Seen plenty of sunrises before." and then of course you climb down.
Yeah.
But we climbed up dodging camels because a load of people went up on camelback because it's clearly easier and it's, you know, one of the trips people do. So we climbed up, saw the sunrise, and it was spectacular, I have to admit. And it was a fabulous experience. And then you climb down. But climbing down, I don't know whether you've ever climbed up mountains and down mountains. Climbing down, it really puts a lot of pressure on your knees, your thighs, and your feet because you're coming down rather than it's really different. So we get to the bottom, and then they took us into the monastery, and we saw the burning bush, which is all part of the
Right.
story. Now, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I'll say that before anybody sort of throws anything at me. I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't follow one religion.
Sure.
But it was fascinating to see it, but not in shorts and flip-flops. No. It doesn't work.
Indeed, no. I try and avoid mountains if I'm honest. I like flying over them in aircraft and looking from above. And now I actually fly a drone as well. So
okay.
So I can, although you know that's a small mountains are fine. I can handle those. Yeah. Or the bigger one, then I'll normally have the car. If I can drive up it, then I'm quite happy to drive up them. But
I tell you what, it was one of the. I got to the bottom and I thought, what have I just done? It was worth it, though. It was worth it.
I'm sure it does. It's like anything we do in life. It sticks in the memory, and
it's a story. It's a story as well when you think back.
Thanks, Julie. There's a very interesting chat there we had, and I'm sure we will have Julie and others back on the show during 2021. We will have some more guests on next week's show, and I'm really looking forward to that. Now, as this is the last episode of 2020, just a quick message from both me, my editor Pete, and my business partner and right-hand man Jonathan Stobbs, and we would all like to wish you and all your loved ones a truly wonderful 2021. And if I can help you in your property journey in 2021 and beyond, then please do get in touch.
Property on Fire with Ian Walmsley. Please use your podcast app to rate, review and subscribe to the show. And if you'd like a question answered on a future episode, email ian@propertyonfire.co.uk.